Famous people who passed away in 1732. This is the second part. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Jansen Bleecker. He was born in July 1641 and he died in November 1732. His age was 91 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a Dutch-American politician whose tenure as mayor of Albany and contributions to colonial commerce made him an influential figure in early New York history. In 1685, he emigrated to New Amsterdam, now New York City, and shortly thereafter he moved to Beverwyck, now Albany. He became a successful trader and merchant and was also involved in land speculation. When Albany received its city charter in 1686, he was appointed the first city chamberlain. Treasurer in 1689, he was also appointed captain of the Albany militia. When Jacob Leisler led a rebellion against British authority in New York from 1689 to 1691, Albany was stronghold of anti-Leisler opposition. He served as a member of the Albany Convention that attempted to convince Leisler to allow British military supplies to move north from New York City in anticipation of a French attack from Canada. Woodes Rogers. He was born in 1679 and he died in July 1732. His age was 53 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an English privateer and governor, known for his adventurous voyages, particularly his role in the rescue of Alexander Selkirk and his efforts to suppress piracy in the Bahamas. He is remembered as the captain of the vessel that rescued marooned Scottish sailor Alexander Selkirk, whose plight is generally believed to have inspired Daniel Defoe's novel Robinson Crusoe. Rogers came from an experienced seafaring family, grew up in Poole and Bristol, and served as a marine apprenticeship to a Bristol sea captain. His father, who held shares in many ships, died when Rogers was in his mid-20s, leaving Rogers in control of the family shipping business. In 1707, Rogers was approached by Captain William Dampier, who sought support for a privateering voyage against the Spanish, with whom the British were at war. Rogers led the expedition, which consisted of 2 well-armed ships, Duke and Duchess, and was the captain of Duke. Charles Sergison. He was born in January 1655 and he died in November 1732. His age was 77 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Charles was an English naval administrator whose career spanned critical decades of Royal Navy, ensuring its readiness and operational success. He became a clerk in one of the Royal Navy dockyards in 1671, and by 1685 was a principal officer and commissioner of the Royal Navy. In 1693, he occupied Cockfield Place House, now Cockfield Park, in Sussex, which he later purchased from the Boyer family. He lived at the Cockfield Place until his death. In 1698, he was elected Member of Parliament for New Shoreham. He held the seat until 1702. He continued to work in the Admiralty as clerk of the accounts until his retirement in 1719. He built a large collection of papers relating to Admiralty orders to the Navy Board between 1603 and 1717. These papers have subsequently been published. John Gay. He was born in June 1685 and he died in December 1732. His age was 47 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. John Gay was an English poet and playwright whose sharp wit and social commentary, especially in works like The Beggar's Opera, earned him lasting fame in literary history. His first play, The Mohawks, in 1712, had censorship issues. The following year, he wrote a comedy, The Wife of Bath, which appeared at the Drury Lane Theatre. The dedication of his rural sports in 1713 to Alexander Pope began a lasting friendship with him. In 1714, Gay wrote The Shepherd's Wake, a series of 6 pastorals drawn from English rustic life. Pope had urged him to undertake this in order to ridicule the Arcadian pastorals of Ambrose Philips, who had been praised by a short-lived contemporary publication, The Guardian, to the neglect of the Pope's claim to be the first pastoral writer of the age and the true English Theocritus. Gay's pastorals achieved this goal, and his ludicrous pictures of the English country lads and their loves were found to be entertaining on their own account. Victor Amadeus II of Sardinia. He was born in May 1666 and he died in October 1732. His age was 66 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Victor was the first king of Sardinia, whose reign was marked by administrative reforms and territorial gains, though his abdication led to political upheaval. He was the first of his house to acquire a royal crown, ruling first as King of Sicily and then as the King of Sardinia. Among his other titles were Duke of Savoy and Duke of Montferrat, Prince of Piedmont, Marquis of Saluzzo, and Count of Aosta. Louis XIV arranged his marriage in order to maintain French influence in Savoy, but Victor Amadeus soon broke away from the influence of France. At his father's death in 1675, his mother, Marie Jane Baptiste of Nemours, was regent in the name of her 9-year-old son and would remain in de facto power until 1684, when Victor banished her further involvement in the state. Theodore Eustace, Count Palatine of Salzburg. He was born in February 1659 and he died in July 1732. His age was 73 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a German Count Palatine, whose reign was marked by his cultural contributions and his efforts to strengthen his territories economically and politically. He was a Count Palatine of Salzburg from 1708 until 1732. Theodore was born in Salzburg in 1659 as the only surviving son of Christian Augustus, Count Palatine of Salzburg, and Amalie of Nassau-Siegen. He died in Dinkelsbühl in 1732 and was buried in Salzburg. Theodore married Maria Eleanor of Hesse-Rosenberg, daughter of Landgrave William, sister of Ernst Leopold. George Duckett. He was born in February 1684 and he died in October 1732. His age was 48 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an English politician and writer whose career combined public service with intellectual pursuits, leaving a modest legacy in political and literary circles. He was also a poet and author who was literary combatant of Alexander Pope. In 1705 general election, he was returned in a contest as Whig Member of Parliament for Clane in Wiltshire. He was very active in Parliament, acting several times as teller. He spoke on the proceedings against Charles Caesar on 19 December 1705 and voted on the Police Bill in 1706. He reported from the committee examining a petition relating to the administration of the Fleet Prison and promoted a bill on the Clane Highway. He was named to draft a bill to end the embargo on the export of white woolen cloth, which was a matter of concern to his constituents. He supported his friend John Asgill over a publication and over his subsequent expulsion from the House. Adam Christian Thebesius. He was born in January 1686 and he died in November 1732. His age was 46 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Adam was a German physician whose groundbreaking anatomical work on the heart and blood vessels contributed significantly to medical science. He is known for his studies of coronary circulation. In his 1708 graduate thesis, De Circulo Sanguinis in Code, he described the tiny cardiac veins, tributaries that drain directly into cardiac chambers. These veins are known as Thebesian veins, and the drainage pathway is referred to as the Thebesian system. He studied medicine in Jena, Leipzig, and Leiden, receiving his doctorate from the University of Leiden in 1708. During the following year, he opened a medical practice in Hersberg, and beginning in 1715, he served as municipal physician in Hersberg as well as medical consultant to the nearby Wormbrunnen Spa. John King. He was born in May 1652 and he died in May 1732. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. John King was an English bishop who played a prominent role in religious affairs, particularly in supporting Anglican missions abroad during the early 18th century. The family of Dr. King bears the same arms with Robert King, the first Bishop of Oxford, of whom there is a curious full-length portrait in Christ Church Cathedral, Oxford. A lion rampant, crowned, and 3 croplets are in a field sable with the motto Atavus Regibus. Some of his poems and other manuscripts are among the Sloane collection in the British Museum. Additionally, a manuscript survives of King's occasional observation about the parish, recorded on and off between 1694 and 1732, which has been of valuable use to local historians, kept at the rectory until the late 19th century. It is now held by Kensington and Chelsea Local Studies and Archives together with a typewritten transcript. Daniel Duckett de Subercase. He was born in February 1661 and he died in November 1732. His age was 71 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a French naval officer and colonial governor who played a key role in defending French territories in North America during the early 18th century. He was baptized a Protestant to Jean's daughter, a rich merchant and bourgeois who had purchased several noble estates, including the Lay Abbey of Subercase near Essen. He served about 10 years in the land forces and in 1684 was a captain in the regiment before he joined the Navy and sailed for Quebec. No sooner he had landed in 1687 than he set off with his contingent on a campaign against the Senecas. In 1693, he was named Lieutenant Commander Garrison, Adjutant, and Adjutant General. On 1st April 1702, he succeeded Monarch as Governor of Plaisance, arriving at his post in 1703 during the early years of Queen Anne's War. Johann Philipp Förtsch. He was born in May 1652 and he died in December 1732. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Johann Philipp was a German composer and diplomat whose contributions to music and public service showcased his diverse talents and influence in the 18th century. Förtsch was born in Wertheim and possibly received his musical education from Johann Philipp Krieger. Moving to Hamburg in 1674 to write librettos, he then became, in the 1618s, one of the main composers in the heyday of the opera Grandsmark. In later life, he returned to medicine. Andrea Brustolon. He was born in July 1662 and he died in October 1732. His age was 70 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an Italian Baroque sculptor, celebrated for his elaborate wood carving, which combined artistry with functional design, making him one of the greats in his craft. He was trained in a vigorous local tradition of sculpture in his native Belluno, in the Venetian terra firma, and in the studio of the Genoese sculptor Filippo Parodi, who was carrying out commissions at Padua and at Venice in 1677. He spent the years 1678 to 1680 at Rome, where the high Baroque sculpture of Bernini and his contemporaries polished his style. Apart from that, the first phase of his working career was spent in Venice from 1680 to 1685. He is documented at several Venetian churches where he executed decorative carvings in such profusion that he must have quickly assembled a large studio of assistants. Emperor Reigen of Japan. He was born in July 1654 and he died in September 1732. His age was 78 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Emperor Reigen was a Japanese monarch who abdicated to pursue a monastic life, emphasizing spiritually and courtly refinement during his reign. He was the 112th Emperor of Japan according to traditional order of succession. Reigen's reign spanned the years from 1663 through 1687. His memory is honored and preserved at the designated imperial mausoleum. His posthumous name was created during the Meiji era by combining the kanji from the names of two previous emperors, Emperor Kurai and Emperor Kugen. His immediate imperial predecessors since Emperor Go-Mizuno Meiji, Go-Komai, and Go-Sai are also enshrined along with his immediate imperial successors, including Higashiyama, Nakamikado, Sakuramachi, Mamazono, Go-Sakuramachi, and Go-Mamazono. Dionisia de Santa Maria Matters Talangpaz. She was born in March 1691 and she died in October 1732. Her age was 41 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a Filipino religious reformer, known for her piety and her efforts to establish one of the earliest communities for religious women in Philippines. The Augustinian Recollect Sisters is the second oldest native Filipino congregation for women religious founded in the Philippines after the Religious of the Virgin Mary. The Talangpaz sisters left their comfortable home in Calumpit, Bulacan in 1719 in pursuit of their spiritual calling after their Augustinian pastor repeatedly turned down the request for permission to wear the habit of mantillata, having heard that Recollects were more amenable to admitting Filipino women to their third order. They proceeded to the shrine of Our Lady, the Carmel in San Sebastian de Calampang in Manila, which had been administered by the Recollects since 1621. Jiang Tingxi. He was born in 1669 and he died in December 1732. His age was 63 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a Chinese painter and scholar celebrated for his artistic mastery and contributions to one of the most comprehensive encyclopedias in Chinese history as an official painter and grand secretary to the imperial court. Jiang used a wide variety of artistic style and focused particularly on paintings of birds and flowers. He was also proficient in calligraphy. His works influenced later court painters. Apart from cultural activity as a holder of Jansen degree, Tingxi performed the important duties in Qing government's Office of Military Finance on par with Jiang Tingxi, although better known for his complete classics collection of ancient China. Jiang also contributed along with other scholars in the compilation of Jansen Tingxi. This geographical gazetteer was provided with a preface in 1744, more than a decade after Jiang's death, revised in 1764 and reprinted in 1849. Agrippina Volkonskaia. She was born in March 1669 and she died in October 1732. Her age was 63 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a Russian noblewoman who played a significant role in the court of Peter the Great, championing cultural advancements and the arts during her lifetime. She was also known for her participation in many political intrigues. At court, in 1727, she was the leading figure of a circle of prominent people in a conspiracy with the purpose of bringing about the downfall of Alexander Delinovich Menshikov, but she failed and was exiled. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.